Hi guys, so I'm going to show you how to set up a basic weak aura using the WeakAuras2 add-on, which can be downloaded from your Twitch/Curse desktop icon or from the link in the description box below. Now this is not going to be anything flashy, as all I want on my characters is simple and clear information regarding the duration on certain cooldowns and buffs when I choose to use them or when certain passive abilities become active. So I'm going to set this up on my Fury Warrior. My Fury Warrior has 9 weak auras that I use, and I find that they are more than enough to play this spec the way I want to. I have split them into 3 categories. We have the DPS weak auras, which will consist of Battlecry, Bloodbath and Avatar. Then we have the healing and survivability weak auras, which will consist of Commanding Shout and Enraged Regeneration. And then we have what I call the information weak auras. By this I mean they will tell you when an ability that is passive has been triggered and is now active. I tend to only use it for talents or baseline passive abilities that I want displayed. So I only use it for War Machine, Enrage, Frothing Berserker and Wrecking Ball. But if you wanted to, you could set it up to tell you when a tier set bonus or legendary proc has also become active. I'm only going to focus on having them show how long the ability is active for when I choose to use it, as I can see when the ability is off cooldown by simply glancing at my bar every now and then, as that suits my playstyle. Now for my first weak aura, I'm going to set up Battlecry. So to get started, first type /WA and hit enter, and this will open up your weak aura options. Then click onto new, then click onto from template, and then click onto icon. For the Battlecry weak aura, I will select the default icon, but it's up to you what size you want to use. The size can always be adjusted later if needed. Make sure in the drop down boxes at the top of the screen it shows your correct class and spec setting. This should however be automatically selected. So in this case I want to track my Battlecry, as this will be an ability I will be using often to increase my burst damage. To do this I click onto buffs, as Battlecry is a buff, and then select the Battlecry ability. As you can see, it has now appeared in the centre of my screen. Now I want my DPS weak auras to appear over my target's nameplate to the right of the screen when I use it. So I've just targeted myself to bring up my nameplate, and you can just left click and move the ability into the place where you want it. I have already made a note of the coordinates where I want my ability placed at, so I will just type them in to the X and Y offset section at the bottom of the screen. Now I want this ability to show me the cooldown of how long the ability is active for when I use it. So under the display tab, if you want a solid number countdown along with the icon being shaded out as the time decreases, then click the box that says cooldown. However, I untick the box that says cooldown as I want the cooldown to be displayed in a different way for me. I normally just leave the number 1 text box as it is, and instead move down and tick the number 2 text box, as everything that is needed is set as default here. In the text part, make sure it says %P. The P means progress, so it will show the remaining time of the timer. And as you can see, the countdown is in the middle of the Battlecry icon and shows the time in decimals, i.e. 4.1 seconds remaining, etc. I just find this style a bit more accurate and beneficial. If you want to change the size, font or position of the timer's text, then do so from the drop down boxes. I would leave the remaining time section as default though. If you want to change the size of the icon, then scroll down and adjust the height and width to fit your preference. Or you can left click the sides and corners of the icon to adjust it with your mouse. But for the purpose of this video, I will leave it at the default size of 64 by 64 so you can see it better. Now because we used a template to set this up, everything else in the other tabs should be set up automatically, but it is best to just quickly check. So in the trigger tab, everything that is required should be automatically ticked, but just make sure that type is ticked and the type drop down box is set to aura. Make sure the auras box is ticked. A picture of the ability and a number inside the aura name box will confirm it's correct. Make sure unit is ticked and player is selected in the drop down box. Make sure that aura type is set to buff, and make sure the on only box is ticked and buffed/debuffed is selected in the show on drop down box. Now finally click onto the load tab, and if you only want this ability to show when you're in combat, then put a tick into the combat box. However, I just want the ability to show whenever I use it, so I just leave it unchecked. Then, just make sure that the player class box is ticked and your class is selected in the drop down box. So in this case, warrior. And finally make sure the talent specialization is ticked and your spec is selected in the drop down box. So in this case, fury. When you're finished, just X out of the screen. Now when I use this ability either in or out of combat, it will give me a 6-second countdown, as that is the duration of this ability. This process can be repeated for every ability you wish to use and set up as a weak aura. I will quickly set up one more ability, and this will be for Frothing Berserker, which is a passive talented ability, which will proc at random. This will let me know when I reach 100 rage, as my damage will then be increased by 15% and my movement speed increased by 30% for 6 seconds. So again, type /WA and hit enter for the weak auras options. Click new, from template, then icon. This time I'm going to select a medium icon, as this is only to let me know that this ability has activated, since it's a random proc, so I don't need it to be as visible as the cooldowns that I am activating manually. Again, make sure your class and spec are shown at the top of the screen. Then select buffs and then the Frothing Berserker, and position the icon to your preferred area of the screen. In the display tab, uncheck cooldown if required. Tick the number 2 text box and make sure the %P is selected in the text box, and adjust the size, font and position if required. Height and width of the icon can be adjusted again from the options below, or by left clicking the icon and manually adjusting it. Click the trigger tab and make sure the type, aura, unit and aura type and own only boxes are ticked with the appropriate information in the corresponding sections. Then select the load tab and tick in combat if you only want this to show in combat. Make sure the player class and talent specialization has the correct talent and spec selected. And finally, because this is a talented ability, make sure the talent selection box is ticked and the appropriate talent is selected. So in this case, it's Frothing Berserker. Once done, X out of the screen, and when you next engage in combat, the weak aura will activate when the talent randomly procs. Now I have repeated the process for all of the abilities I mentioned at the beginning of the video, as you can see on screen. My healing and survivability weak auras are shown on the left hand side of the screen when activated, and my DPS abilities are shown on the right hand side of the screen again when activated. The so-called information weak auras that I mentioned show to the right hand side of the screen when they activate, but they are much smaller in size. Anyway guys, I hope this helped some people out. Weak auras are quite easy to set up once you get used to it. So I hope those who have never used them give them a go, as you might find they can come in quite useful. So thanks for watching, please comment, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.